Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Our software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. In this particular video, we're going to cover a lot of things, everything from the tropics to the upcoming flow pattern that might return a little bit of warmth to the Corn Belt, and of course, we're going to finish with a discussion about Brazil. So sit back and give it a good watch, because there's going to be a lot of information I think that'll be very important to U.S. agriculture. Well, the map you've been looking at here, this graph in the background, basically shows us the full length of the Atlantic hurricane season. And I bring this up for one point, and that is Sunday was September the 10th. And climatologically, that's the peak of the hurricane season. What you need to hear me say here, though, is that we have still the second half of the hurricane season still to go, and it's been very, very active as of late. Of course, the big system that's been in the news for the last 10 to 12 days has been the eventual path here of Hurricane Irma. Irma made landfall in the United States already twice, and what I mean here is that early in the morning on Sunday, which is basically what this animation captures, Hurricane Irma hit the Florida Keys just to the east of Key West, causing an enormous amount of damage. It made landfall as a Category 4 strength hurricane, and then eventually went up and hit the mainland there of the Florida Peninsula later in the day on Sunday. It's an enormous system, and it caused a lot of damage, and this is not only going to impact the livelihoods of millions of people, but it will certainly impact agriculture, which is the focus of my videos. Now, I just want to point something out. Because of the overall flow pattern of the atmosphere, and partly due to what Irma's doing, we have had some really dry weather here in Texas, which is exactly what we need to dry out from Harvey. I mean, remember, we just had a few weeks ago another Cat 4 hurricane hit the United States, and so this has been a very rare year in having two Category 4 strength hurricanes hit in the same season. But Irma is certainly the one we're going to have to be discussing in this video update. So something neat here to look at. What you're looking at over here on the left is a radar animation as Irma made landfall early in the morning on Sunday. The radar near Key West is here, so you can see the well-defined eye, very strong spiral rain band, really the outer eye wall moving between these two keys here. As it did so, this is a radial velocity image, so this actually tells us the wind speed and direction. That's how we color code this map. Greens are toward the radar and reds are away. Some of the wind speeds in here we're measuring well over 130 miles an hour. And of course, that pushes quite a bit of water, causes some huge waves, which is what you're seeing in the video here on the right-hand side. So powerful hurricane making landfall. Now, as the day went on, we saw a lot of severe winds and many isolated tornado reports on the central and eastern side of the state, and this is Miami. You're seeing some of the basically the flooding going on in Miami, and plus the incredibly fast winds blowing through central, in between these buildings here and parts of downtown Miami. And just incredible to see this here. Now, this is one video that I gotta be honest, when I saw, I just kind of gave me quite a bit of relief after just being so stressed out, seeing so many people adversely affected by this. But this apparently is a crane on top of one of the buildings being constructed in Miami, spinning here. Now, this is time lapse, but we had some pretty incredible reports of these cranes getting destroyed by the hurricane force winds that moved across the state. But just saw this and honestly just had to have a good chuckle out of what Mother Nature can do. Again, though, this caused some major problems. Just to show you how bad those winds were, even in Miami, over on the eastern side of the state, you just saw the roof getting ripped off of a building here in what's called West Bickle, and incredible to see that. Look at that. This is what hurricane force winds can do. And so we don't quite know, as of Sunday, what the total damage is going to be in terms of the winds, in terms of the flood, but it's going to be bad. And this was a major event for the United States. Now, here's a video of a guy that went out and tried to capture what the wind speeds were as the hurricane made landfall in the main part of Florida. And what he was able to capture with his handheld weather instrument called a Kestrel was 117 mile-an-hour winds. I'm actually just amazed that the guy can stand up to that. And I know a lot of people that watch my videos are here in the Midwest, and we don't experience hurricanes like this, of course, in the Midwest. We can have thunderstorms that produce wind speeds like this, but they're brief. They last maybe a few minutes, maybe up to a half hour in the most extreme cases. The winds that this man was enduring here lasted for hours, and that's why hurricanes are so incredibly destructive. Now, just to show you how bad things were in Naples, Florida, when the hurricane made kind of its second landfall, which was near there, you're again watching the torrential rains and incredible winds, buffeting, the east coast of Florida. I'm sorry, the west coast of Florida. So just incredible to see this. Now, as we continue, I want to show you something that I found just fascinating as an atmospheric scientist to see here. This was later in the day on Sunday, and you can clearly see the incredible circulation of Irma here. Again, this is Jose. We'll talk about Jose in a few minutes because Jose has the potential to cause some problems as well. But if you were in the bays that are kind of here in the, on the west coast, but getting up toward Tampa and nearby areas, you see we had a wind that came from the land and went onto the water. And what's amazing about that, and what a lot of people, maybe don't remember about what hurricanes can do, is while they can produce incredible storm surge, remember that when the winds are blowing offshore like this, they can actually cause the ocean water to recede. And that's what you're seeing in this video. This is Tampa Bay, and the water's been pushed way out simply because of the flow of the winds. Incredible to see that. Now that water will come rushing back in as the storm surge does come back in, but this is not an invitation to go out there and walk in the newly exposed beach. So be safe when events like this happen. Okay. When we look at what the winds are doing, at least as we get into the first 3 days of this week, we have some very intensive agriculture with our citrus crop in Florida. But as we move up into parts of Alabama, into parts of Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina, we're going to be seeing some pretty strong winds through Monday into early Tuesday. That's what you're watching here, an animation of wind speed, and you're also seeing atmospheric pressure here. And why I'm concerned about that is we grow a lot of peanuts and a lot of cotton in through here. And plus, there are corn and soybean operations down here as well. And, you bring in winds like this toward the end of the season, we could cause some damage to the crop that's down here. So we have to watch that very closely. In terms of precipitation, getting in through a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and early Thursday, we can see that the remnants of Irma are going to move through parts of the Carolinas, getting into Georgia, Alabama, and then moving back into Tennessee, maybe getting up into the Ohio River Valley. And here's what you need to know. We're approaching peanut harvest time down here. Cotton harvest is still a little bit away, and of course, corn and soybean harvest is trying to start. This is going to be some very, very heavy rain impacting harvest operations. Plus, remember, this section of Kentucky and Tennessee was hammered just a couple weeks ago by the remnants of Harvey. 7 to 10 inches of rain fell right where I'm drawing in through here. So we may even see some precipitation getting up into the eastern Corn Belt by the time we get into later on this week. So Irma's not done, moving right here into the eastern Corn Belt with time here. So keep an eye out on that. And just to kind of show you the map that's on the left here, this is cotton production. So you can see we're going to be moving through a pretty prime region here for cotton production, stretching from parts of the Carolinas into Georgia and into Alabama. And then in terms of peanuts, that's basically where we grow peanuts in the United States. And so this is important as we move toward that peanut harvest time, as we're going to be dumping a lot of rain in that particular area. All right, if we stretch this out over the next 10 days and kind of bring our focus back to the Corn Belt, what we see is this. As we move into throughout the week, this week, yes, Irma moves up into the eastern Corn Belt. We get some scattered showers and stuff that move into parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. But really, the rest of the Corn Belt is going to have a drier start to the week. It's really, we really got to get into next weekend before we start to see something organized coming out of the Rocky Mountains. Potentially by next week, and we're talking Saturday into Sunday, there might potentially be a low pressure system that kicks off some rain that goes across the parts of the Corn Belt. So a dry week really heading into the Corn Belt, except for the eastern Corn Belt, that will be dealing with parts of Irma. So there's some uncertainty with this. I'm not ready to nail this down just yet. I'm just watching it all week as we kind of progress forward here. Now, let's talk about temperatures. The data for August is in, and what you're looking at here is the statewide average temperature ranks. So looking at our 123-year record across the United States, the central United States, we're seeing here a top 10 coolest August. And so that's important to think about when we're talking about, how the corn crop is finishing and how the soybean crop is finishing across the main growing regions of our country and through here. Meanwhile, record hottest out here out west. Look at this: California, Oregon, Washington, of course, where we have these incredible forest fires going now. Very, very hot for the month of August. So we look at that because we're wanting to know if there's going to be any sort of a shift away from this cooler pattern as we move into September, because that, of course, raises the concern for early frost. So as we always do, we like to look at the overall flow of the troughs and ridges in the jet stream. And if you just watch that animating out over the next 10 days, you may have noticed a bit of a pattern shift. So let's walk through it together. Irma, of course, is going to be lowering atmospheric heights in through here, but over the top of Irma, to the north of Irma, there's a broad ridge in the flow of the jet stream, occupying much of the United States. But what I want you to watch is what we're going to see happening here in the Gulf of Alaska. You see, as I move forward in time here, coming out of the Bering Sea, which is here, moving toward the Gulf of Alaska, we're going to be seeing a pretty substantially deep trough. And there's pretty strong model agreement in the evolution of this. And what that does is that signals a bit of a shift, such that this could potentially bring a weaker trough here into the kind of the Pacific Northwest, driving a ridge over the, most of the Corn Belt in the eastern half of the country. And why that's important is that could help our temperatures, of course, rebound back up to more climatologically average temperatures, or at least nearby there, as we move into the middle part of September. The longer range European model has certainly picked up on this. You can see that starting in after the first week of September, going into the first week of October, the 51-member ECMWF ensemble is actually picking up on a return toward near average to warmer than average temperatures for a big section of the Corn Belt. More than likely, the cooler weather you're seeing here is because of Irma coming in, over the next several days. So this is a bit of a shift in the pattern. And this is, of course, going to kind of lessen our likelihood of having an early frost. But I want to let you know something. Getting toward the end of this week, so we're looking out here on Friday and Saturday at the end of this week, we are going to start to see some, temperatures that dip below freezing in the higher country here in parts of Idaho and Montana. So if you're watching this video in these states, we're looking out for some pretty chilly temperatures as we have that first big kind of cooler trough pattern moving in toward the end of this week. So this is Saturday the 16th. So if you're watching again the video in Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, be on the lookout here for some cooler, frosty temperatures, especially get toward the higher elevations. Now, I told you we got to come back to the tropics. What you're seeing here is the next several days, a forecast of Hurricane Jose. So Jose is right now here, but because of a lack of a steering current around Jose, basically the hurricane's going to do a loop-the-loop and get here by the time we get all the way, into Thursday and Friday of this week. And that's where I start to get concerned. There's substantial model spread in where Jose is going to go. And I just want to put this out there that once Jose is finished kind of looping around here, I'm getting concerned that Jose may potentially interact with the East Coast. It's going to depend on the timing of a lot of different things here, but I don't want to rule this out just at this point of having Jose eventually interact with the East Coast of the United States. If you would have asked me a couple of days ago, I would have told you with pretty good confidence that I expected Jose to stay out on open ocean, but things have kind of shifted recently that make the East Coast in play here. Now, I want to also give some attention to what's going on in South America. We're not right now moving into the time period where they're beginning to want to plant in Brazil. Now, in South America, one of the big controlling factors on the strength of the Brazilian monsoon, which is what brings them all of their precipitation, is El Nino or La Nina. And I kind of put a black oval here to kind of show you where we have to watch all winter long for the development of either El Nino or La Nina, because that will most certainly affect South America, but also U.S. winter conditions. Well, right now we're starting to see kind of a cooler streak appear here, which would suggest, although it isn't, La Nina conditions. Overall, you have to have an atmospheric and an oceanic response here to get a full-blown El Nino or La Nina. And right now, we can kind of see a mixture of some warmer sea surface temperatures and some cooler than average sea surface temperatures in this region. And what's important to see here is that as we stretch out our forecast, let's look from August all the way into April of next year. This is a forecast of the Central Pacific sea surface temperatures. We can see that most of the models are forecasting slightly cooler than average over the next, call it 9 months or so, but they're not dipping down here deep into La Nina territory, which is what I've color-coded here, and certainly not bulging way up here into El Nino territory, kind of hovering around in what we call INSO-neutral conditions. And why that's important is because of some research about the weather in South America during the Northern Hemisphere winter and the Southern Hemisphere summer, and that's what we're looking at here. So December through February precipitation patterns for El Nino on top and La Nina on bottom. When there's a strong El Nino, we tend to have drier weather in the northern growing regions, so think Mato Grosso, while it tends to be very, very wet in the southern growing regions in parts of Argentina. When there's a La Nina, which is the bottom graph, we tend to see the opposite. It tends to be wetter across the northern growing regions in Brazil and drier in the southern growing regions in Brazil and in Argentina. So El Nino and La Nina tends to give us, this kind of flip-flop precipitation pattern. But remember, right now we are in INSO-neutral conditions, which is important to understand as well. And that's because with the first planting dates starting to show up here toward the middle and end of September, we need to know what's going to happen in terms of precipitation. You see, every year at this time of year, when we look at the soil moisture storage map, which is what you're looking at here, it's dry across most of Brazil. Again, Brazil's major farming operations, this would be the northern grow regions here. So this is Mato Grosso do Sul, getting all the way down to Paraná and Rio Grande do Sul down here. Now, it's always dry, but if they're wanting to get in and get things planted, they need to start getting the regular rainfall. And what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to plant after a rainfall and then go another 3-4 weeks without having any, because remember, this time of year we can start to be building in some pretty warm temperatures into this region as well. So it's going to be important to see what we're expecting in terms of precipitation moving forward. Remember, Brazil just came off of a record crop in soybeans, huge, 113.9 million metric tons, their all-time largest crop. And again, when we kind of look over the next 10 days or so, what we're seeing is the northern growing regions staying dry, but it looks as though there will be some precipitation for the southern growing regions down here in parts of Argentina. So this is very important because Brazil, their annual kind of expansion rate of acres is to the tune of around 600,000 hectares of new land that they'll plant. And with the lack of a strong El Nino or La Nina signal, we'll have to be watching for very volatile weather patterns. And what I mean by that is without the dominance of an El Nino or La Nina kind of shifting everything one way or the other, we'll have to watch for week by week temperature and precipitation stresses this year in Brazil. Now, again, I know that was a long video, but we had so much important things to talk about. I hope that you found this informative, and I, of course, look forward to talking to you again on Thursday. So we hope you look forward to that video coming out next Thursday. And to get Morning Farm Report for your operations, complete with a daily email that shows you a snapshot of your field conditions each morning, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for a free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for our Sustainable Yield program or for growers who work with ED merchandisers. I thank you for your attention. I look forward to talking to you again on Thursday. Thank you.